Daredevil is back and a full-fledged member of the MCU, so let's talk about Daredevil Born Again Season 1, created by Matt Corman, Chris Ord, and Dario Scardapane, starring Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, and Margarita Levieva. This show is about how Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk are on a collision course as their true and real identities come to light. This show is something else. So we're going to talk about it, and especially if you, as a Christian, should watch it right now. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Tim, and we exist to help Christians live in the world, not of the world, by utilizing our convictions in the movies and shows we watch. Daredevil Born Again is rated TVMA for intense violence and action, gore to a very high degree. On top of that, there is also strong language throughout the series. So we're going to talk and go over any convictions you might have in watching this show, any theological themes that may be present in this first season, and wrap it up with a personal review from yours truly. Without further ado, let's head into the Christian Conviction Meter. In case you're brand new, the Christian Conviction Meter is a series of 5 convictions: violence and gore, lust, substances, profanity, and intense/horror scenes. These are areas that may distract or hinder or tempt you away from following Jesus. We don't want you to do that. So these are a guide, a tool, a resource to help you determine if this particular show is worth watching based on your convictions. It's a guide and a resource. So without further ado, let's hop in to our first category. And in terms of violence and gore, it's very on par with the original Netflix show. If you don't know, that show is extremely brutal, and this one is no different. Hand-to-hand combat is throughout the entire series, and it is pretty intense. The best way to describe Daredevil is he's kind of like Marvel's Batman, which he won't kill you, but he will put you in the hospital, is the best way to describe that. And the brutality of this show is absolutely nuts. There are plenty of broken arms and broken legs, and we see blood pouring from those moments. At the same time too, we also see blood due to injuries, and especially in the last episode, there's a lot of just brutal killings. Namely because of an action sequence that has both Daredevil and the Punisher a part of it. It's an intense episode towards the end that's pretty brutal. It also involves a really brutal killing that we do see on screen that even caught me by surprise. Like, I even was like, ugh, this is nasty. But seriously, it is a intense and graphic, bloody show. On top of that, also we have a serial killer that's present within the show, and he uses a lot of blood as part of his kind of MO. And so it's a pretty graphic show. This is a 5 out of 5 in the violence and gore category. So if you struggle with seeing blood or dealing with violence, this is definitely not the show for you. Our next category, lust, and there is no nudity a part of the show, so that is a big plus, but there is a little bit of sensuality that is throughout this show in particular. A few things to note here is there is a relationship that Matt Murdock, our lead character, he has through the series with a woman named Heather Glenn. So they participate in secular human relationship activities. And so they have a moment where she kind of undresses Matt. Again, there is no nudity shown. It leads to them kissing, and there's kind of a cut. On top of that, you also do have a scene where Matt is taking a shower, and she later joins him in the shower, and they start kissing again. A cut happens, and then it kind of ends. There are these things present, but again, there is no specific nudity. There is no sexual interaction other than some kissing. But there are these things to be wary of. I know this can be a very crucial area of just struggle and temptation. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 just to be on the safe side here. with this show. Moving on to substances, in terms of alcohol in particular, most of what we see is usually some wine or champagne that happens at some banquets and parties contained throughout the season. But there also is a few moments throughout the season, once kind of at the beginning of the series, a few times towards the end, where they are drinking hard liquor items, but there is no drunkenness or abuse of this specific substance. On top of that, there is a scene in particular where a guy is given a little baggie with a white substance, presumably some sort of drug. Again, I cannot tell you specifically what it is because I don't remember and I don't know that stuff very well. That is present. It's given to a guy to help kind of cool his nerves because he's about to appear in court, which feels kind of like an oxymoron. You're standing in court and yet you have ingested some sort of substance that may not help you anyways, just a side note, but that is a part of the series. That is something that does take place here. So we're going to give this a 3 out of 5 just due to the nature of kind of the harder substance that is being used within that specific episode. On top of that, you also do see a bit of alcohol here and there, but no drunkenness, as well as no overdose or abuse of either subject, either alcohol or drugs. There's no explicit abuse, but there is substances used within the show. Our fourth category is profanity, and there's a decent amount here. Actually, it's kind of more than the Netflix show. You do have, obviously, a lot of verbiage used here. Hell is used, the DA word's used, the SH word is used, the BI word is used, God DA is also used as well, the A word is used, a-hole is used as well. There are a lot of just different verbiage used in either describing people or situations and all that sort of stuff. On top of that, there is actually a decent amount of uses of the F-bomb. There's at least one or two contained within every episode of the show. And for the most part, that's a separation from the Netflix series because there really wasn't much use of the F-bomb. But this one has, like I said, one or two about every episode. So for those reasons, it's going to be higher on the scale. One thing I do want to note here, though, is Jesus is used not in a glorifying or praising way. He's used more as like a curse word or a reactionary term to events going on. So I do want to keep that in mind just for anyone in particular who doesn't like that sort of verbiage. This is going to be a 5 out of 5 here, mainly because of the multiple uses of the F-bomb, as well as the other language present throughout the 9 episodes of the show. Our last category is intense and horror sequences. This is not a horror show, so there is no horror scenes contained within the series. That being said, though, the main kind of villain of this season is a serial killer, and so there is some kind of intense horror twists, but it's not an explicit horror show. At the same time here, just the nature of that character in particular does cause just a lot of intense sequences and just kind of gives a creepy vibe, which is the intent of the show. But that is something to keep in mind. On top of that, like I mentioned at Violence and Gore, this is a very graphic show in terms of its violence, its gore nature, which means there is a lot of brutality, which can lead to some intense sequences within the show. There is a bank robbery scene that is essentially the entire plot of the 5th episode of the show, but death and chaos are a big part of the show. Literally, after the first 15 minutes, the show just dives into the death and chaos, and it gets pretty emotional from what happens. Like I said, there's plenty of shootings that also are contained within the show. Again, this is a brutal show, and I do want to specifically highlight in this area the final episode of the series. We see Matt, aka Daredevil, and Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, team up together. Now, if you know anything about the Punisher in particular, he doesn't hold back. He is a brutal person, and I kind of touched on, I believe, a little bit on the violence and gore part. There's a level of brutality that may make you squeamish, particularly with this last episode. It's intense. There also is a intense killing that does take place in the show by our kind of overarching villain of Kingpin, aka Wilson Fisk. That even caught, like I mentioned earlier, caught me by surprise. It made me go, oh my gosh. Like, it's genuinely shocked me of just the brutal and also gross nature of it. But this show very much can do that. It's an intense, graphic, violent show. And like I mentioned earlier, the other main villain other than Wilson Fisk himself is a serial killer. So this is a intense show that in some ways is on par with the Netflix show, but I mean, that last episode will take it even further, which is insane to think about. But seriously, there is a lot of intensity with this show, a lot of it tying back to the violence and gore, but it's a 5 out of 5 on this category as well. So on the conviction meter, it's a 21 out of 25. This is pretty high on the conviction meter here. But again, this is up to your discretion. If you feel like this is a show you can handle and you are a big Marvel fan, then I'd say give it a try. If you can't handle it even after the first episode or two, don't worry about watching the rest of the show. Ultimately, this whole thing is just to help you form your convictions to find movies and shows that you can watch that don't hinder or distract your relationship with Jesus, and ultimately allow you to grow in a deeper love and relationship with Him. That's our ultimate goal. So without further ado, let's dive into some theological themes present within Daredevil Born Again Season 1. And unfortunately, unlike the Netflix show, which does have a lot of ties to Matt Murdock's Catholic roots, because Matt Murdock is a Catholic, and so it's a pretty pivotal part of his role in the comics and just who he is as a character. We don't see all that much contained within this first season. A lot of it more focuses on kind of the legal aspects of the character, which is also a pretty important part. But in terms for us here, there really isn't anything super specific when tying to Christianity or the church or the Bible. There is a few things that Matt mentions throughout the season that are more kind of practices of a Christian. It's not like, you know, he has a specific Catholic priest that he's going to, or, you know, some of these other things that were a part of the 3 seasons of the Netflix show. My hope is that obviously changes going forward into this next season in particular, with that having kind of more of a part for this next season. But we'll see how it goes, because they definitely did tease what next season's going to look like. So with that wrapped up, what are my thoughts on Daredevil Born Again Season 1? And honestly, it's great to see these characters again. I was a big fan of the original Netflix run of the Daredevil series. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Daredevil is such a fun character for me, but also at the same time too has become one of my favorite characters because of that series. And when they talked initially about what this season was going to be, it was a bit disappointing to see that the fact that this show wasn't going to involve any of the other side characters. Now, obviously, they went through some reshoots and brought some of those characters back, and that was great to see. It was great to see Foggy and Karen and, you know, Frank Castle and some of these other characters that we have known and loved, Vanessa, and some, again, these characters that we have watched over the course of 3 seasons, and getting to see them again. Heck, even Bullseye, you know, all these characters, again, like I said, that were so impactful in the original run of the show. To see them again just bridge the gap and allowed us to experience the beauty of this show. On top of that, it's great to see Charlie and Vincent just dive right back into these roles. It just feels like they never left, and I mean, they brought just their A game with these characters, which is no doubt in my mind for that. I mean, I would argue that these two are some of the best comic book castings ever done. I mean, they just brought the familiarity of what we knew these characters brought throughout the Netflix run, but also seeing what they were able to do in adding new layers to this specific season was great to see. The action here is really solid as well, and it brings the brutality and intensity that the original show has, and especially in that last episode, just expounds it. Absolutely goes crazy with it at that end. I mean, that was just absolutely insane, and it just took it to just another level. At the same time here, one of the things I really enjoyed about this show is getting to see more of the lawyer aspects of Matt Murdock. That was a heavy part of like the first 3 to 4 episodes here of the show, with Matt Murdock defending Hector Reala. It was also cool to see White Tiger get introduced into this show as well, another comic character who has had a pretty decent run through the comics, and so it was cool just to see, again, we're adding on to these characters and also pulling in some others from other parts of the MCU, right? Some representation from Hawkeye, some representation from Miss Marvel, all bringing in to help bring this into a much larger part of the MCU, which is really, really cool. And so I definitely enjoyed that. I also want to give a quick shout out to the score because it's done absolutely beautifully. They were able to take the original theme of Daredevil and expound it, and just, I don't know why I keep saying that, but it just brought it in a way that's done just so well, and it fits throughout this entire series. It just is done very well, and I really enjoyed it. And that is really what I would say for this entire season of Daredevil Born Again. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I recognize that it is a more brutal show, and even some of it caught me off guard, but I enjoy this character. I enjoy Daredevil. I enjoy Wilson Fisk, Kingpin. I enjoy seeing these characters. I enjoy stepping back into this part of the MCU and seeing these characters on screen again. And it's done in a way that feels, yes, new and a bit refreshing, but at the same time feels like these characters never left. And so that is just done very well, and I give my props to just the team over at Marvel being willing to pivot from the original direction of the show to just bring something I think that is just done very well. Obviously, in terms of our space here, we have not reviewed the rest of the Marvel series that has been a part of Disney Plus, stuff like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Miss Marvel, Loki, Moon Knight, all that sort of stuff. We haven't done those yet, but I feel pretty safe to say that this is one of, if not the best, Marvel shows on Disney Plus. Again, if you're not a big fan of like the brutality of it, don't worry about watching the show, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was solid, and overall I'm gonna give this a 8.8 out of 10. It kind of feels in line with season 2 a little bit. I may rate this just a little bit higher than that second season, but again, it's hard to top the first and third seasons of Daredevil. I mean, those are just absolutely amazing. So overall, it's a 21 out of 25 on the conviction meter. It's a 8.8 out of 10 in terms of its median score for the series. Those are my thoughts, so let me know yours down in the comments below. What did you think of Daredevil Born Again? Do you plan on seeing it? Have you seen it? Let's chat all things about the show in the comments. And while you're down there, consider hitting that thumbs up and subscribe down below for us. It just sends us out into the algorithm, allows us to reach more Christians so they can utilize their convictions to follow Jesus better, and also to be a part of this community here on YouTube. And thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with us here. We truly appreciate it. It means the absolute world to us. But before you go, there's a few recommendations YouTube is suggesting for you to watch. One of those is, of course, the review of the original 3 seasons of Daredevil. So feel free to join us over there, and we'll see you all in the next one.